Hello! So today I'm going to talk about The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. Here's the rub. I actually really liked The Force Awakens. I loved it the first time I saw it, and I liked it every time I watched it after that. And even though it may have made some mistakes, they weren't the same mistakes that the prequels made, so that was at least refreshing. It also gave me a whole new cast of vibrant and interesting characters that I completely fell in love with. And it reminded me just enough of the old characters that I also got all the nostalgic feels. And it managed to do that without relying too much on old material. So, because someone would have had to fill those roles, so it's okay that they used familiar faces. It really didn't bother me. So for me, it completely succeeded in giving me a new Star Wars movie I could love all over again. And I think it did have the power to convert a whole new generation to Star Wars. Sure, the plot was unoriginal, but have you seen any Avengers movies lately? There are no new plots. It was a basic hero's journey, which, yes, that is what A New Hope was, but guess what? That story wasn't original then either. So I can completely forgive it for that. The Last Jedi, on the other hand, wasn't just bad, it was actually insulting. I may be a little biased because I watched this movie 9.5 months pregnant, so I wasn't exactly in an optimistic frame of mind. But I still hold to the fact that it was terrible. And I'm not going to hit on all the reasons why this movie was so awful because there are just too many. So I'm here to mention a few, and if I leave anything out, Rose, I'm looking at you. It's probably because either I felt enough other people have mentioned it, or I just don't want to talk about it because no one will watch a 2-hour long video about me ranting about Star Wars. So, there you go. Although, I will say right now, I hated the porgs, and I don't think they are cute. There, I said it. They are lame. So, if I was going to have a beef with Force Awakens, it'd probably be the fact that Han had completely regressed as a person. I don't know if that's really how he would have ended up. But Rey needed a mentor, so he needed an excuse to be wandering the galaxy looking for purpose, so it all kind of worked out. Again, I forgive this because even though it wasn't necessarily the most enlightened direction for Han, it was at least still true to his character. Luke in The Last Jedi, on the other hand, no. They turned him into a complete joke. And I do not appreciate that at all. And I've never even been like a die-hard Luke fan. I've always been more Team Darth Vader, but that doesn't really matter. He's still freaking Luke Skywalker. And it's not even the crazy, lost hope, worthless hermit guy that I have a big beef with. It's that how and why he got there. I mean, I do have a beef with it because that just isn't Luke, but whatever. Here's the thing. The Luke I know and love, the Luke that managed to find and exploit the last shred of humanity left in Darth Vader and do absolutely everything in his power to save him, the Luke who never backed down from the Emperor and tried to save his father would not have shied away from an angsty teenager. He would not have assumed the only solution was to murder him. Did you not watch The Return of the Jedi? Are you really suggesting that Luke, his personality, everything that makes Luke Luke, had no bearing on bringing Darth Vader back? That Luke withstood the temptation of the dark side on a childish, naive whim? That he wasn't inherently good and inherently able to seek out the good in other people? allowing him to withstand the Emperor and his father's call to the dark side. I think the guy who withstood one of the most powerful Sith Lords to ever exist could have also seen the good in his nephew, and more importantly, would not have been scared of his nephew. Remember in Empire Strikes Back when Yoda tried to convince him not to go save his friends because he risked being drawn to the dark side, and Luke was like, I don't care, I'm not scared, I can handle it. What happened to that guy? Or at the very least, I think that Luke should have been better able to recognize the warning signs in Kylo Ren, and if not convinced him to change directions, then at least be able to guard against them. Also, where are Spirit Obi-Wan and Yoda in this whole scenario? Why did they completely abandon Luke? He definitely should have had some other side backup throughout this whole experience. So, yeah, that whole thing was just awful. And then on top of that, when he did fail, he just runs away to be a hermit like some coward with nothing to show for it except, yep, I failed. Better just go hide. He really didn't have a plan. He really didn't think he needed to try and rectify his mistakes. Again, this is not the Luke Skywalker I know. I could keep talking about how much this infuriates me, but I'll just leave it there. So, moving on. So, thanks for killing Snoke, or whatever his name is. That was helpful. Not. Way to bypass all those unanswered questions because, yeah, his existence totally makes sense. This is another thing that didn't make a whole lot of sense in Force Awakens, but then The Last Jedi, instead of clearing it up, just made it that much worse. Actually, now that I think about it, this might be a big part of why I hated Last Jedi so much, because it wasn't just terrible on its own, but it ruined Force Awakens for me too. Like, why they ever thought it would be a good idea to not have the same person write all three movies is a mystery to me that I will never understand. They really should have had an overarching plot that extended through all the movies if they ever thought making these sequels would work out, because the winging it and just making it up as you go shows in all the worst possible ways. I need answers for where the heck the First Order came from and why in the world the New Republic was so useless in stopping their rise to power. Sith Lords don't just pop up overnight, so I really need an explanation. Back to thanks Luke for dropping the ball and dooming the galaxy. Also, this is completely irrelevant in the wake of all the previous things I've discussed, but when did Poe meet Maz? Why is he the one calling her for whatever reason? I don't know. That was weird. And why was she in a battle? Is the entire galaxy in civil war right now? And if that's the case, then why is this one ship stranded with no aid and no possible call for help? The rebellion took over the government, right? And then out of nowhere, the First Order blew up the government. But really, it was if they'd blown up Congress, sure, we'd lose all of our elected senators, but government wouldn't just cease to exist. Every one of these senators had an entire planet backing them, right? So the top tier of the government has been eliminated, but wouldn't all the underlings, all the local government, planetary government still have structure and be functioning? And not just structure, but shouldn't all those planets now be on the side of the resistance? Shouldn't they want some retaliation? Shouldn't the resistance have more support now, not less somehow? Because obviously, no one wants to be ruled by a terrorist organization, which, let's face it, that is all the First Order is at this point, right? Am I the only one crazy enough to think this? Why is it all of a sudden only up to one ship with half a dozen resistance officials to save the galaxy? And I really still have absolutely no idea why Finn was set on that wild goose chase and what that was supposed to accomplish. All I'm saying is, why did the rebellion in the original trilogy seem to have way more resources than the resistance does in this one? Which, shouldn't they have theoretically been somewhat in power for the last 20 years? Maybe I've got this all wrong and the rebellion never won anything and the New Republic never happened, but I think it did. Otherwise, the New Order wouldn't have needed Starkiller or whatever, because basically I feel like The Last Jedi did not progress this story in any way, except in creating a weird, I don't even know what to call it, like blossoming relationship maybe between Rey and Kylo Ren. That is about the only significant thing that happened in this movie. Also, since when does the Force allow for whatever power it was that Snoke used to link those two? Maybe he didn't do it somehow. Someone did, and it was weird. I feel like we had a basic understanding of the limitations of the Force, and then this movie just completely disregarded all of that and gave it whatever powers it felt like doing in order to progress whatever story they thought they were telling, I guess. I'm still very confused. So, anyway, all I'm trying to say is The Last Jedi took all of my hopes and dreams of what Disney Star Wars could be and bullseyed them like a womp rat in a T-16 in Beggar's Canyon. So, who's excited to go watch The Rise of Skywalker? Later talkies, guys.